Chapter 2.
I'm Erik Cargill.
And I'm Rachel Elnar, and this is Cheers and Tears.
Design leadership tales retold.
Today's guest is a San Francisco-based artist and designer known for bold, unexpected projects that spark human connection and social change. From launching the 1000 Journals project, which sent blank journals around the world, to calling out distracted drivers with Twitspotting, his work has been exhibited at SF MoMA, the Skirball, and the Torrance Art Museum. A former creative leader at Facebook and Pinterest, he now heads the creative team at Airtable and serves on the SICA Council for SF MoMA. When he's not making art, he's shaping design communities, having led both AIGA SF and its national board. Let's welcome Brian Singer.
Yay! Welcome, Brian.
Happy to be here.
It's good to see you.
Oh, it's so great to see you. Erik and I started this podcast to try to share everyone's stories, see what everyone is up to since the pandemic or even prior. And so we really appreciate you being here.
Oh no, this is fun. You mentioned reminiscing about the good old days, and I'm like, yes, let's do that.
Let's do it.
Let's just jump right into reminiscing, shall we? So, when was your first AIGA leadership retreat?
That is a good. I actually believe that there was a leadership retreat in San Francisco, but I think I had either just joined the board or I might have just joined the board, but I couldn't really be there for it, so I don't really count that as like my first.
Okay.
I think I might have known it was happening, but I don't think I attended. I think the first might have been Oklahoma.
Oh, Omaha, 2008.
Omaha.
That was your first?
Was it?
I remember
they do all sort of blend together. Like at some point, you have to give me details for me to remember which one's which. But maybe it was Omaha, yeah.
Okay, so this is what I remember about Omaha, is that Jill Finley and I were hanging out in the front of the embassy suites, having a smoke, and you just walked up. And we're like, hey, who are you? And you're just talking about your 1000 Journals project. And yeah, that was the first time I had met you. I didn't know that was your first leadership retreat.
I do remember standing out in front of that hotel. Yes. I also remember that it was a giant atrium. And I remember that there was like some issue with us making noise in the hotel.
Oh yeah.
So the groups had to move from room to room to stay ahead of the poor security people.
I do now remember that. I was telling Erik we had to write the room number names on our arms just to communicate where we were moving next. I do now remember that we were trying to get away from security. That's pretty funny.
Now, remind me, Rachel, was it Omaha where you drank the bar out of all their liquor and they were closed the next day because there was nothing left?
That is true. That is true.
That I don't remember, but maybe that's why I don't remember.
You've been in AIJ for a long time, but I was wondering if you can acquaint many with how you first got into AIJ and what your leadership role was and which chapter, how long you served.
Sure. So I served on the board of the San Francisco chapter, first as vice president for 2 years and then as president for 2 years. And I recall the first board meeting I attended. Everyone went around the room and they sort of explained who they were, their background, how they got there. And that got me thinking, I'm like, how did I get here? Like, what, why am I here? And what I realized is that like, I was the guy that would show up and complain about stuff all the time. And at some point, someone just got sick of that and they said, well, why don't you try to fix it? And so that's how I ended up getting involved, because I was trying to like make things better or fix it. But it was also because I just complained a lot.
That makes sense. So were you in the design industry at that time? Like, where were you in your career as well?
I'm trying to remember. So I had moved to San Francisco in 2000, and that was after about 5 years working in the South Bay at various design firms doing, typical identity branding systems, web work. And I arrived just in time for the .com layoffs, which were awesome, of 2000. And then I think I freelanced for a while and eventually settled in at Jennifer Morla Design, working for Jennifer Morla. And I think AIGA happened after that when I left to start my own sort of independent consultancy. And so I was sort of involved in the design community already. I'd been showing up to events, knew a lot of folks that were, at different firms in the area. So um, I remember my first, maybe not my first AIG event, but I'd show up to AIG events and, you'd show up and I'm sort of an introvert. Like I don't like meet people. I just walk up to them in front of hotels and stand near them until they talk to me. Um, and I remember I was at an event, and at the time, the executive director of San Francisco AIJ, Amos Klausner, um, saw that I was by myself and alone, I guess, and he came up and he said hi to me, and he welcomed me into the organization. He introduced me to a couple of people, and like that made all the difference because like then I felt a little bit more comfortable. I'd still show up and not know many people, but eventually I would show up and be able to see people I knew and made friends. So yeah, it was just a good experience for sort of getting into the organization.
That's amazing. And when you attended the 2008 Omaha Leadership Retreat, what was your position in leadership at the time, the chapter?
I was the vice president. Honestly, that it is literally all a blur. Yeah, I can't remember which years I did what.
What other leadership retreats did you attend? Do you remember?
I remember Miami.
Oh, Miami's 2007, I think.
Did I go to Miami before Omaha?
Must have been.
That's how good my memory is. Like if I had a list, I could be like, I went to those.
I know.
Geez, we need to make a list. We need to build a list because, yeah.
That would help because I feel like I probably went the 4 years I was on the board.
Okay.
And then later there was a break and then I joined the national board and I probably went to some of those as well.
Yeah, that's when I met you, was when you were part of the national board. You had this great video montage.
1 minute, right?
60 seconds.
60 seconds.
And at the end, you said something like, you're not doing it right if you're not getting death threats or something like that. This was you talking about, taking pictures of people on their phones as they're driving, right? Which I thought was just brilliant. And you were showing some of the responses that people were giving. Am I remembering this correctly? Maybe I'm not.
No, that's exactly what happened.
Okay.
Because they give you 60 seconds to introduce yourself, and most people would get up there and be like, "Hi, I'm so and so from the whatever chapter," and blah blah blah. I'm like, does anyone care? I don't know. I mean, maybe they do. So I just thought I'd show a 60-second video of a montage of like comments that people made, some of which included death threats in response to a project that I did, set to like German metal music. So it was, it had some, yeah.
Right. And that was memorable for me because obviously I know there were other people there, but I know where you are. It worked. It totally worked. And I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And so that was, for me, that was Denver. And then you did it again in Grand Rapids.
I only got one good video, so I'm just going to keep using it.
I love it.
That project is Twitspotting, right?
Yes.
Can you explain that project?
I was commuting a lot down 101, which in the Bay Area is like this stretch of highway. It's about 35 miles. And oftentimes I would do it as like part of a ride share or shuttle or like carpooling or whatever. I didn't like, it's just a lot of commuting for me and I don't like driving that much. And I started like looking out the window a lot during these when I was as a passenger. And if you ever pay attention to people on the freeway, you start realizing both how many people pick their nose, which is a lot, but also how many people are on their phones. And so this is stop and go traffic on a freeway. This is like not like you're just cruising along easy. This is like literally stop, go the whole time. And so I thought that was interesting. And also that at the same time, I'm looking at billboards on the freeway. And somewhere in my head, I thought there should be photos of those people on their phones and they're like while they're driving on the billboards so they can see while they're driving. There was like some sort of connection there in my head.
Yeah.
So I just started taking photos of them And then, I put up a website, and then I put up some billboards,
Man.
and then
That's
all hell
incredible.
broke loose. So yeah.
So people tracked you down.
Actually, what happened was it was pretty quiet for a while,
Yeah.
and then it got picked up in the media.
Ah.
And when it got picked up in the media, it went really big, really fast. Like to the point where people called the AIGA offices looking for me. People called, not like people trying to kill me, news people.
Oh.
People called my mom trying to find, like, she's like, and so a lot of, like, it was like the interesting story of like the minute. And so I did a bunch of interviews, and there was press went pretty wide. I mean, it was included in a segment on the Today Show. I wasn't invited to be on that, but they mentioned it. They're like, artist publicly shames drivers. And I'm like, I mean, am I doing that, or do they do that? Like,
right.
I'm just documenting what was happening. I'm also not making any claims about it, and you really couldn't see their faces. So, but yeah, it went big real fast. And I think the comment threads and the visibility had my mother worried, and she's like, are you reading what's in these things? And I'm like, don't worry about that. Those people are angry at other things, and they're just taking it out on me.
Brian, you need to get that. Are you good?
I don't know. That's like an Amazon package or something.
You didn't want to hurt anybody. You didn't want to bother anyone anymore, right? You stopped doing that type of work going forward, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I just decided I would close up shop and start following the rules again. No, I mean, I think, to me, if I don't know who said this or where the saying comes from, but like if everyone loves what you're doing, you're not trying hard enough. Like literally what you want is at least half the people angry at you. So I think it's those types of projects that like get me excited about, not excited, but like think that I'm hitting the right note, or I'm in the right spot. Because there's so much safe work out there that it's like, I don't why. It doesn't move me. It doesn't strike me. It doesn't like do much for me. So I think I'd rather reach 50% of the people and have it set off a light bulb in their head, or the other half and make them really angry at me. At least they're feeling something.
Is it expensive to get a billboard, to put something on a billboard?
So it's interesting. The answer is yes. But there's a whole price range based on location, how many you're buying, the duration, the size.
Sure.
So the freeway billboards are pretty expensive. But when you get within the city, if you want like a 10 foot by 20 foot, they have this all over their neighborhoods, at least in San Francisco, they do. You can buy packages of those for like 6 weeks for like what I would say is still expensive, but like worth it. Just to sort of like put that stuff out in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, I was gainfully employed, and that's like where the money was going. Like, I think even today, the reason I have a job is so I can afford to do the products I want to do.
You're still actively doing art, which I think is great. I mean, always challenging artwork that sparks ideas, that is trying to push for social change. So just want to say thank you for that, because not enough people are speaking up and making a difference and challenging ideas. So really love that.
I would say there's those that like march in the street and fight in the halls of city government, and then there's me on the side making snarky comments from the sidelines. So there's a lot of people fighting really hard right now. I think the art is just my way of putting my thoughts out into the world.
Yeah. So let's get back to leadership retreats. I do have to say that you were one of the very first on the national board that would hang out with us and party. For some reason, there was some sort of unwritten rule way back when where the national board would always have their separate dinners or parties or whatnot, and the rest of the members and leadership or the chapter leaders would go out and build human pyramids and go out drinking and whatnot. There was definitely a separation, and I think that when you were on the national board, Brian was right here by your side, hanging out with a beer and just watching the magic happen.
I think there's like in industry or community, there tends to like people somehow self-segregate or separate based on, I don't know, whatever hierarchy or structure is implied somehow. And I think that A, I don't really care about that, but B, I mean, I had spent like, these are the folks that I knew from my previous time on leadership retreats. These are my friends that I want to hang out with, and like, I don't need to climb a ladder. And I get it's not climbing a ladder. All the people on the board were great, but I felt like at times they were like more exclusive, like so and so is going out to dinner with these folks. I'm like, cool, those are the group you would expect to go out to dinner together. I most of the time, Rachel, I just wasn't invited to that stuff.
Got it.
You had mentioned before about, you were complaining, and then finally you're now on the board, and you're in a position where you're making change. Was that an easy transition to change into that? And then were there programs that you can think of right now that benefited from your leadership?
I would hope so. I do think there's something interesting about the transition piece.
Yeah.
Because I think it is extremely easy to complain about things.
Yeah.
It's the easiest possible thing you could do. There are some folks in the design industry who've made whole speaking tours about just complaining about things. And that's great because they're saying what we're all thinking. Like, why isn't the world better? Why aren't things the way they should be? And it's much different when you're like in there doing the work and understand the constraints and the challenges and the nuances of things. And it happens all the time today. You see people complaining about something, and in the back of my head, I'm like, but do you realize that they've got a budget? Or do you realize that like there's only 2 people doing that whole thing? So I think that transition of me sitting on the side, at an event and being like, why don't we have recycled cups for the water? And then you're like, okay, now I need to go figure out how to get recycled cups for the water at our events. That's going to cost 10% more. It's just a shift in from passive, I don't know, drive-by criticism to actual responsibility. And I think there's a huge difference, both in impact and mindset for those that, don't get me wrong, I still complain a lot about a lot of things. But I think I also realize that like oftentimes there's reasons why things are the way they are, and it's not always the people's fault who are trying to make it better,
Sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. So as I had mentioned earlier, you would be standing, either we're watching people bowl or watching people dance or do karaoke. Those were all fun after program memories. Hanging out, getting into the very first Uber that I ever tried was with you, Brian. I was like, what is this? We're getting into some stranger's car. I've never done this before. What after program memory stayed with you the most?
I think it was, there's so many things happened. I don't know if it was like the people in the pool at 2 a.m. in Miami, or I can't even remember what retreat this was. It might have been Miami. Sitting at the top floor of the elevator in the hotel. The elevator went up to like whatever the top floor was, and that was where the conference room was. But that was also where nobody was, so everyone like took the elevator up and was just sitting in the landing outside the elevator at like 5 a.m. And I think this was all because like the crew from Jacksonville had early flights and weren't going to go to sleep. So everyone just went up there and were like sitting on the floor, hanging out until like 5 a.m. until they had to leave or something. And I'm like, what are we doing? But it was just fun the whole time. People are talking and joking around, and it's like those random things that you're like, why did we do that?
I love those times. It was the spaces in between conversations, the times we really got to know each other, the times that we used to build trust and really build our network. I feel like when you did an after program hangout, whether it's standing by the bar having a beer or going off doing something like the Sunrise Club or whatnot, or getting on do pyramid, Those type of experiences, I felt like built stronger bonds than the everyday, hey, let's get out our Post-it notes and really work on a problem together.
I think you're absolutely correct. I think the same holds in the workplace. Like there's that working relationship, but I think people also bond when they actually get to know each other outside of, I guess, the task at hand. And I think the leadership retreats and conferences to some extent really like enable folks to hang out on maybe a lower pressure environment where there's not like a, okay, we're going to solve all the world's problems with these Post-it notes. Go.
Yeah, did we solve any problems with it? I don't remember. I do remember the after program stuff, but I don't remember the daytime stuff as much. That stuff blurs together for me.
I remember, I think Sean Adams was interim president of the national chapter. And I don't remember where this was, but I think we were doing like the mandate for 2015 or something. So it might have been like 2012 or 13 or something. And there were Post-it notes involved because I remember like, the big conference room and Sean's on stage. And I think he was asking people to share like findings from their breakout groups. And Josh Silverman stands up, tall guy. I think he was from Rhode Island at the time. He's now in San Francisco, I think, teaching at CCA. And he stands up and he's got his Post-it note on his hand. And he's already a tall guy, so he just raises. He's like, "I'd like a mandate with Sean Adams." And I don't know that I've ever seen Sean Adams blush, but like the room erupted in laughter. I mean, it was like those are the types of moments that I'm like, okay, this is fun.
It was great. We're just talking a lot about community on this podcast. And I feel like leadership is built into the chapters. I mean, once you volunteer and get onto chapter leadership, you learn how to build community, not only with your board, but also with the members. Has there been any leadership experience that has influenced your career right now from AIGA?
That's a great question. I mean, I think there's the accountability thing. The no one's going to solve it. You better go solve it. Because I think there's always this expectation that someone else is going to do the work. I mean, from a leadership perspective, it is a lot of figuring out how to get along with people and get things done. It's a volunteer board. Nobody's getting paid. Nobody's being forced to do anything. So how do you motivate people, a 20-person board in San Francisco, to put on 40 plus events a year and have committees and education programs and scholarships and whatnot? All that said, I do not consider myself like a motivational person. I think a lot of people had we had a lot of good active people in San Francisco. I just maybe helped wrangle them a little bit. So I think I was, maybe it was less about leadership and more about, it was a good time where people were invested in making change. We didn't have I think it was the first sort of social change committee. And we'd have different groups for different things. And that was, I think, brought, like a couple board people like, we want to focus on this. We want to do events on this. We want to make this a thing. And it was like, that sounds great. So you've got motivated people invested in a topic, and then they bring people in based on their interest in, making change. I think that was RV and Alice, I think, founded that, but I can't remember.
Oh, that's amazing. So you facilitate, you support them. And they're the ones who bring those programs to the membership, to the chapter.
Yeah, I rarely take credit for anything because honestly, like most of what gets done is because people step up and make things happen.
Seems to be a prevalent theme that we're hearing from AIGA people. It's like there's plan to do. What do you want? What do you want to do? What do you want to get involved in? And there's definitely room for you.
Is there any community building that you're doing right now? You're at Airtable now, correct?
Yes. I mean, there's team building, and there's, figuring out how to work with a variety of, stakeholders across the company. We have a community group that is community building with like people that love to build on Airtable. Yeah, but hard to say that I'm doing that much in my role other than just trying to figure out how to get all the things done that are being asked of us.
Got it. Okay. So what inspired you to go from the chapter leadership to national leadership?
Well, I think maybe the San Francisco chapter always had this, not a chip on its shoulder, but like why is national doing that? Like, why are we still doing that at the national level? Or like so far behind or whatever. And I think my hope was to instill some of what we were seeing on the ground, at least in shifts in the design profession at a higher level. And like, and a perfect example is, and I think it's still going on today, and I'm not criticizing, but like at the time we had what, one design competition, two design competitions. One was for book covers and the other was for everything else.
Yep.
And as an industry that was shifting more and more, it seemed antiquated to continue that ratio of attention to, we've got two competitions. One is for book covers, the other is for this, and this. And I think part of that, because of things like that, you start opening up opportunities for more focused organizations to champion those efforts. And that has led to, some challenges in maintaining like relevancy across I think the full spectrum of the profession. Anyway, that's what I thought I was going to help fix when I joined the national board. I don't think that I helped fix that.
Okay. I was about to ask you, how did you affect that? Okay.
I failed miserably. I'm sorry, everybody.
Oh gosh, yeah, at least you gave it an old college try. I think it's very difficult to change things on a national level. The more stakeholders you have, the more visibility you have, the harder it is to make changes. That's just my point.
Indeed. The more voices and considerations you needed.
Exactly. Were you involved in any pyramids?
I was a part of a pyramid. There's a photo, I think it's myself, maybe Seth, maybe Erik, I think on the bottom. And then I'm trying to remember what happened after that, but I just remember it hurt my back a lot. Like I think the knee in my back did not feel great. But I was committed because I'm like, I'm part of a pyramid. I'm at the bottom. Got to hold it up.
Yeah. When you do that foundation, you're kind of putting yourself at risk of everybody else falling on top of you as well.
Yeah, I've seen. I did remember witnessing a pyramid collapse, where the person who was sort of on top took a digger, and it wasn't pretty. So those happened as well.
Yeah, not terribly trust building after a while.
Not after a few drinks, no.
Yeah. I'm not doing that ever again.
Yeah, a lot of great memories. And I always enjoyed hanging out with you, Brian, and really getting sort of a point of view in terms of like what other chapters are doing. I love what San Francisco was doing at those leadership retreats. You guys had passed out these tattoos. And I mean, it was very creative. It was a great time to sort of show off, get creative, perform, and just see what everyone else was doing.
Yeah, you get a bunch of designers together and usually good times ensue.
Right. It's great to reminisce and to remember what it was like you said, at this time where not everybody got to experience, and the leadership retreats are not happening anymore. So it was kind of a lost era.
That is a shame, because I do think that's where a lot of the maybe national connections were happening. Like there's a lot of local stuff, but like I have friends in many cities now because of those retreats.
Yeah.
And a design community that I can lean on or ask questions to, or it's like, how do you meet someone in Jacksonville? Like, but now I feel like I could go to Jacksonville and like call a couple people up. I don't know. It's a shame, but those were some good times.
Yeah. Oh, I was lucky to be a part of it, and I was lucky to meet you through it too.
Yeah, no, it's best. It's like the best designer community. I mean, it is the design community, at least in my orbit, right?
For sure. And it's been, let's see, if Miami was your first 2007, so it's been quite a while. That's what?
18 years.
18 years? Holy cow.
Getting old. Times are changing.
Well, thank you again, Brian. We really appreciate talking to you, and it was fun to go back in the memories.
It's nice to see you again.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This has gotten me thinking, and now I'm probably going to be depressed. I'm kidding. I'm going to reminisce on that. I'm going to grab a beer and I'm going to like go through some old memories and relive some times, I think.
Oh, perfect.
Amazing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll try to work on this list of leadership retreats. I might have to go back to Mike Josie. He said that he has attended 10 of them, which is a lot.
Well, he was, of course, that would make sense.
Oh, I do have a question. So when AIGA San Francisco, when the leadership retreat was in San Francisco, you did not attend, but were you in leadership at the chapter or you were just a member?
I think I had just rolled onto the board and they're like, oh yeah, there's this leadership retreat thing happening. And I'm like, I can't attend because I've got this other thing. And they're like, oh, well, if you drop in, whatever. I didn't realize what it was. I didn't understand what was happening. I think I might have gone to like one after event or something and talked to some people, but like, I don't think I attended the event itself. I think I had like work or something else that I couldn't get out of. And, but had I known what it was, I probably would have quit my job to attend. So, or whatever I was doing at the time.
100%. I know that, let's see, when Jill and I had rolled off the board, she would go and crash the next leadership retreat. They would just show up to Portland or whatnot and just be outside hanging out, like trying to get past Denise Wood to get in.
It's just hanging out in front of the hotel. Nothing wrong with that.
Well, thank you again, Brian. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you both.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian.
Talk to you soon.
See ya.
That was amazing.
That was great. It was great to see. It was great to see him.
Yeah, I was really impressed to meet Brian the first time because I knew about the 1,000 Journals project that he sent out, all these blank journals, and then they all came back with amazing things. Like, I was quite impressed. I was a little starstruck. Cheers and Tears will be back next time with more design leadership tales retold.
Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast with your creative community, design leaders, and friends.
Cheers and Tears Design Leadership Tales Retold is a production of Chapter 2 and hosted by us, Rachel Elnar and Erik Cargill. This episode was produced and edited by Rachel Elnar. Podcast graphics by Erik Cargill. Animation by Verso Design and Megatoe Design.
The theme music track is Loose Ends by Silver Ships Plastic Oceans. Follow Cheers and Tears on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube podcasts, or wherever you get your audio and video podcasts. Subscribe to our email list at cheersandtears.com so you don't miss an episode.